Education and unemployment have been two major problems facing the Muslims in this highly complex national landscape. Without modern education, no headway was possible to overcome the problem of unemployment. The two were intertwined. The Muslims, occupying high places in the government, left for Pakistan in a bulk, creating a vacuum for millions of the less privileged Muslims. Their proportion in the subordinate services, including the police, dipped low. Worse still, the Muslims as a community developed inferiority complex, paying for the guilt of others. Madrasas and maktabs were the only institutions left to them, while the migration of the middle classes and the educated gentry of Muslims created the problem of adjustment in tune with modern needs. Larger madrasas, catering to higher Islamic education, stood by nationalist ideals, but their medium of instruction was primarily Arabic-oriented. Darul Uloom, Deoband, and Nadwatul Ulema were the two outstanding examples. Islamic theology, logic, and grammar formed part of the syllabi. Of course, they took to computerization and modern scientific knowledge, but much later.
दारुल उलूम नदवतुल उलमा जिसकी इमारत में आप खड़े हैं, इसकी पहली बिल्डिंग जो है आपकी इस पुष्ट पे है। इसका क़याम तकरीबन 100 साल पहले हुआ। 1898 में इसकी बुनियाद रखी गई और हमारे उस ज़माने के मशहूर उलमा मौलाना मोहम्मद अली मुंगेरी, अल्लामा शिबली और इस तरह के मौलाना आज़ाद वगैरह इसमें शामिल हुए और उन्होंने इस ज़रूरत को महसूस किया कि इस ज़माने में अंग्रेज़ी तालीम की भी ज़रूरत है और दीनी तालीमात के साथ उसको भी जोड़ा जाए।
राजस्थान मदरसा बोर्ड ने पूरे राजस्थान में तालीमी बेदारी मुहिम चलाई हुई है। राजस्थान सरकार ये चाहती है जो मदरसे हैं, इन मदरसों में लड़के सिर्फ मजहबी तालीम पढ़ते हैं, अरबी तालीम और उर्दू की तालीम पढ़ते हैं, आगे चल कर के उनके एडमिशन दूसरे बड़े स्कूलों में नहीं हो पाते। अब सरकार ने तय किया है कि इनमें मजहबी तालीम के साथ साथ मॉडर्न तालीम भी पढ़ाई जाए, जिससे अपने इम्तिहान दे कर के दूसरे क्लासों में जा कर के और वो सर्टिफिकेट लेकर के अपनी तालीम जारी रख सकें।
The Aligarh Muslim University followed the Western model, even as Jamia Millia Islamia in Delhi represented synthesis. But they too catered to the elite by and large, and it was only at a later stage that they were able to attract students from the lower middle classes. The transition was bound to be slow and painful.
I think the most important thing for any community, the Muslims included, to realize is that you cannot be put down or you cannot be made to look small unless you contribute to that process of deterioration or degeneration, either by acts of commission or acts of omission. So if the Muslim in India is faring less well than he wants to or deserves to or needs to, then there is a large contribution that he and his community have made to that situation. And that situation has built up over a period of time. It hasn't happened in a decade or 5 years or 2 years. So the reversal of that situation will also happen only when the community realizes its potential and works towards it and understands that the reversal is also going to take time. In a society where there are many hands and a small pie, you'll see lots of sections being deprived of their rights and their privileges.
The pattern of Muslim education is divisible into two streams: modern institutions and madrasas, catering to the traditional mode.
जो लैकिंग है हमारे हिंदुस्तान में अगर मुस्लिम के लिए, तो मैं यही कहूँगा कि एजुकेशन यहाँ प्रॉपर मिला नहीं है। उनकी जिम्मेदार कौन है? गवर्नमेंट नहीं है, हम खुद हैं। मेरे पास कुछ लोग आए बीच में कि लेट्स मेक ए, यू गिव सम डोनेशन, वी वांट टू मेक ए उर्दू स्कूल। आई सेड नथिंग डूइंग। आप इंग्लिश मीडियम स्कूल खोलिए, हम आपके साथ हैं। बहुत मस्जिद हो गई, बहुत मदरसे हो गए, सिर्फ स्कूलें बनाओ, कॉलेजेस बनाओ, पॉलीटेक्निकल स्कूल बनाओ, जिससे हम औरतों को, हमारी बहनों को पढ़ा सकें। और पहला एजुकेशन माँ होती है।
What the Muslim community needs is more education and the advanced and modern education. All Muslims who have really gone through and studied as far as the advanced education is concerned, they made a place for themselves. But to come in the mainstream, to become great business people, to become great intellectuals, the great writers, and having at the present in the forefront, the new ideas, new thinking. I think the more my Muslim brothers read, the more big place they'll make for themselves.
Muslim society is changing, but changing slowly. It's not adopting American style or some other style. The idea is that there's a section of Muslims who think that without education, without coming into the mainstream of life, they'll be left behind. So this awareness, is very important, but the progress is slow, I must say.
Muslim community needs to concentrate more on education, but the thing is that the largest number of Muslims were craftsmen. And now that the crafts are dying, they will have to now look for education.
Indeed, there was a large section of artisans in whose scheme acquiring of skilled labor took precedence over formal education. Moradabad is known for its brassware, but with the changing times, the craftsmen engaged in industry had to adopt new patterns as per the fresh demands in a developing society. They stood up to the modern requirements, and Moradabad brassware was no longer confined to just utensil making of daily use, such as plates and drinking glasses. Those engaged in the industry took to new patterns of exquisite quality based on the wildlife, flora and fauna of India. Muslims are predominantly engaged in this art. They also took to Hindu religious symbols, which fetched not only a good market inside the country, but became particularly popular for foreign tourists who took a fancy to them. Khurja is known for its traditional pottery art. Here too, one comes across innovative patterns. Vases, tea sets, ashtrays, in different colors, designs and sizes are being manufactured in large numbers. Electrical fittings made of clay are a specialty. That the trade is flourishing in a big way, again fetching a good export market, is visible in the brick kilns multiplying in a big way. The brick chimneys carrying the inscription of Bismillah or the symbol of the swastika dot the Khurja skyline.
यहाँ पे तकरीबन 550 पोटियाँ हैं जो रनिंग पोजीशन में हैं। इस वक्त यहाँ जो कारोबारी सिलसिला है, ये मिट्टी पत्थर से हम लोग यहाँ बर्तन, फ्लावर सेट, कटआउट्स वगैरह, इंसुलेटर वगैरह ये सब चीज़ें बनाते हैं और कुछ तादाद में, छोटी तादाद है वैसे वो, का एक्सपोर्ट भी करते हैं। वैसे यहाँ का जो पॉटरीज का काम है वो बहुत पुराना है, तकरीबन 450-500 साल पुराना काम है। उसको हमने यहाँ मॉडिफिकेशन करके न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी से, उसके ज़रिए से इसको काफ़ी मॉडिफिकेट किया है और आगे उम्मीद है कि बहुत अच्छी तरक्की करेंगे।
Firozabad glassworks have a similar story to tell, and one comes across not only the bangles and churis being manufactured in the glass factories, but also, as if keeping with the march of time, goblets made of fine glass and tasteful chandeliers of Firozabad have gained popularity in the domestic as well as foreign markets. These wares are made in homes in Firozabad, which account for a large number of women folk engaged in the home industry. This is different from what one would find in Khurja and Moradabad, where the industry is male-dominated. Interestingly, what comes as delicately made glassware in Firozabad is a compound made of borax, perfume and polished material stoked in the fire at the fire kilns. Muslim women are engaged in making rakhis and manufacturing of saris in the Zardosi units in Old Delhi.
The former governor of Maharashtra, Muhammad Fazal,
has a special word of appreciation for Muslims engaged in the zari industry in Surat, craftsmanship in Varanasi, and Zardosi and chicken work of Lucknow.
My own town, most of the number of shops are Muslim shops, cloth or tin boxes. Now all the yatris who go for the Magh Mela, the Hindu yatris, they do buy one of the main item purchase is a tin box, and they are all made by Muslim. Banaras, I mean, in the Madhya Pradesh, Kota saris and you've got Chanderi saris, or zari work in Surat is done by Muslims.
The beedi industry in Jabalpur, Katni in Madhya Pradesh too fall in their sphere of activity. Muslim motor mechanics in various places, such as western Uttar Pradesh, have had an innate talent yet to be tapped and shaped into a proper professional mode of trade. Thus, craftsmanship has been and is still their strong point. They have the potential of becoming a large reservoir of latent talent and know-how. Artisanship is no longer the profession of the poor and deprived. It has flourished after independence, producing a wealthy class, even as there is no gainsaying that it provides employment to those who have no means to pursue higher education. At the same time, institutions of higher learning belong to a different genre. The Mass Communications Research Center, opened in Jamia Millia, has grown into an institution of international repute. Built with Canadian collaboration, its alumni are found placed in high positions in America, the UK, Europe, and elsewhere. It marked a break from the tradition in terms of equipment, programming, staffing, and the criteria for admissions.
You see, a large number of people that you find today in electronic media have been the products of Jamia, and some of them have achieved certain eminence. I would like to mention the name of persons like Barkha Dutt, or Fuad Khan, who is working for many of the films. So this is a very unique course, a very coveted, prestigious course, but we don't want to rest on our laurels. So about 2 years ago, we started another course with the support of Ford Foundation. That is development communication.
What is notable in the evolution of Muslim education in modern disciplines is the active help of the government to enable the Muslims to come out of the initial sense of desperation, isolation, and diffidence. Indian Muslims have found new avenues of hope, and the theory of their not being the part of the national mainstream no longer holds water.
As far as North India is concerned, culturally Muslims were the mainstream, and then the Hindus have taken a century to come into the mainstream. And the rest of India, Bengal, South India, yes, the Muslims had to come into the mainstream, and they have. I mean, Muslims in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, Bengal are part of the mainstream. It's only in North India that the Hindus have had to come into the mainstream.
It is in their souls, an artisan, a weaver, a craftsman, a boatman, I don't know, a garage mechanic, because by and large, 5% of Muslims are in the unorganized sector now. It's a tragedy, and it really reflects. Simultaneously, education, critically important. I think in these times, it's critically important to be educated. So in that comes another crisis. Now, is it valid to get a job if you're not educated? I don't know. You know, you've got to be educated. So this is a balancing thing which has to occur simultaneously.
They are in the mainstream. Some circumstantially, they are in the backward areas. So you think that they're not in the mainstream. But circumstantially, people who are rich and people who have the means, people who are achievers and they are all already in the mainstream.
Actually, the mainstream is a very much misused and misunderstood phrase, because nobody has defined what is mainstream. Is it the membership of Gymkhana Club in Delhi? Is it the membership of cricket team of India? Is it a membership of the parliament? Is it a membership of the education community? So it's a very ill-defined phrase.
There is a myth now. I always find it very hard to understand. I can't understand this. That constantly it has been said that they are not a part of the mainstream. Why are they not part of the mainstream? If you go to a village, they are the one who behave like farmers. They are tilling the lands. They have all the things that another human being is doing it. So I suppose in that respect that they are struggling to survive daily, they are a part of the mainstream. Why this question at all arises that they are not a part of the mainstream is one difficult one to answer to me.
The emergence of Hamdard University, Jamia Hamdard in New Delhi, is another landmark. At a time when the community was led down by their own kith and kin migrating to Pakistan, Hakim Abdul Hamid went about searching for land in the God-forsaken neighborhood in Tughlakabad as a practical dreamer. This showed his innate deep sense of optimism and courage, and his firm belief in the destiny of Indian Muslims in independent India. Hakim Sahib, as he was popularly known, rose from humble beginnings with Unani Dawakhana in Old Delhi. He built up brick by brick, expanding his institution from the walled city to sprawling open spaces in New Delhi to set up a full-fledged university of Unani medicine. It caters to higher education, often drawing deep on modern Western techniques.
Jamia Hamdard is the interface between the scientific students which are coming from upper strata and also to those which are coming from the poor background, like Muslim background. And we are offering courses like nursing, like pharmacy and allied health sciences. So this is giving a new, and we have reduced the fees also. And here the higher education, in such a scenario, it is considered a non-profitable business or non-profitable thing.
The Hamdard Study Circle has been started with an innovative scheme to train students for competitive examinations. Students taking the Indian Administrative Services examinations and Allied Services examinations have shown encouraging results, and quite a few of them from the Hamdard Study Circle have made it to top positions.
Hamdard Study Circle was founded with a view to providing help to those students from weaker sections, particularly Muslims, who cannot afford to pay exorbitant fees in the commercial institutes, which charge very high fees. And in order to provide a level playing field for all these people, Hakim Saab thought that he should have a facility for these people who can come here, study here, get a good hostel facility. So he thought of establishing this study circle.
Education has been a passion with many other eminent persons. Sayyid Hamid, an alumnus of the AMU, on his retirement from the IAS, was appointed the Vice Chancellor of his alma mater. He is now Chancellor of Hamdard University. A forward-looking person, he was picked up by Hakim Abdul Hamid to put a string around his scattered institutions and weave them together. This is how the idea of the Hamdard Public School in nearby Sangam Vihar took shape. It is a public school with a difference in as much as it targets the weaker sections of society who can ill afford to pay high fees in other elite institutions. The main thrust of the Hamdard institutions is to combine modernity with tradition.
Hakim Saab had the unique quality of dreaming and taking practical steps for realizing his dream. And it was at a time when there was madness relating partition on either side of the border, and when people from the minority community were fleeing this place, his vision was that Indians should progress together, and if any section of the Indian population remains backward, it affects the overall performance and progress of the entire nation.
Janab Sayyid Hamid Saab is very particular that children should speak in English. For that we have set up a language lab, which is a very, very rare facility for the schools. We will be finding only in university this sort of lab. And we give training in English. The children, they speak in English very well. And our medium of instruction is also English. And it is compulsory for all the teachers as well as for the students to speak in English.
In respect of the school, it's open to all communities. There is a subject, Islamiyat, knowledge about Islam, which is a part of the curriculum. And its Muslim students take up Islamiyat, and non-Muslim students take up value education instead.
The Muslim community, they have a lot of potential. I feel it is not tapped yet. And we are trying our best to do that. We encourage the children. We wanted these children to come up. I have noticed a spark in these children. Only thing is that they are not focused. And for that, they need people to guide them and tell them that this is what they require. And you go this way, and then leaving all these irrelevant petty matters aside, and then come forward and they can do excellent work.
Talking of tradition, one comes across a host of orphanages and welfare institutions of Muslims working for poor children. One such institution is Bachon Ka Ghar
in Daryaganj, New Delhi,
which has teaching facilities for needy children. This is a charitable institution which tries to protect and uplift primarily the orphans, but generally those from uprooted families.
मैं सन 1995 में यहाँ आया था जब मेरी उम्र 6 साल थी। यहाँ हमें हर तरह की तालीम दी जाती है। हमें स्कूल भी भेजा जाता है। मगरिब के बाद यहाँ हमें दीनी तालीम भी दी जाती है और इंग्लिश भी पढ़ाई जाती है। ट्यूशन दिया जाता है यहाँ इंग्लिश और मैथ का।
बच्चों को एडमिशन करने के से पहले ये उनकी एप्लीकेशनें ली जाती हैं। एप्लीकेशन में हम ये देखते हैं कि उस बच्चे के बाप की क्या पोजीशन है। बाप अगर नहीं है तो उसका डेथ सर्टिफिकेट हमें ज़रूरी होता है। 6 साल से ऊपर से लेकर 8 साल तक के बच्चे को हम लेते हैं। हमारे यहाँ इस वक्त जो है 100 से ऊपर बच्चे हैं। इसमें जो है हमारे यहाँ लड़कियाँ अलग हैं, लड़कियाँ हमारी दूसरी जगह हैं, उनको सेपरेट रखा हुआ है। इसकी इनकम का ये है कि कुछ हमें ग्रांट मिलती है कारपोरेशन से, बाकी हमारे यहाँ डोनेशन आता है, ज़कात खराज जो है, जो रमज़ान के महीने में हमारे यहाँ ज़कात आती है वो लोग जो है वो देते हैं।